appeared 5,000 years ago and displayed all of his wondrous pastimes to attract all the conditioned souls to take shelter of him. But then later he was thinking that he would like to experience his own sweetness. He would like to accept the mood of his own devotee and experience what it was like to love himself. So I find it very ironic that we conditioned souls mostly want to be God, more or less. I don't think most people wake up in the morning and say, I want to be God. But we want to think of ourselves as very important. We want to be the controller. We think of ourselves as kind of the center of activities. But God himself wants to be his devotee. You know, when we hear about being a servant of God, we may feel a little rebellious. I don't know of any parents who say to their children, I want you to grow up and be a servant. You know, I want you to grow up and be a doctor, an engineer, CEO. They don't say, you know, grow up and be a butler, a waitress. So we have a natural rebellion against the idea of being a servant. I forget what I'm doing here. But Krishna, after his appearance, he was thinking that I'd really like to experience being my own servant. And also he was thinking that although he showed devotion to himself in the form of his eternal associates, that he wanted to demonstrate how to be a devotee. Prabhupada also says that when Krishna came, he says, surrender unto me. But in the form of Mahaprabhu, he becomes very merciful. And he doesn't require that first one surrenders. So then, a little more than 500 years ago, by the bank of the Ganga, a Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared, who was Krishna himself, but in this mood of a devotee. Now, we didn't get any sound at all. We didn't get anything at all. No slide, no sound. And what happened to our sound?
The sound is coming, but they have changed the connection from distance coming.
Okay.
Please continue.
Well, actually, no, I will wait. And you tell me when I can continue. Giving a class here is always involves kind of, it stretches my multitasking abilities. Well, it's a situation where I have to look at my computer to know what I'm doing. Do you understand? Yes, because I have notes. But it's not being shown from my computer, it's being shown from there. So I have to change it here, change it there, pay attention to what's on the screen. And then it's behind me. So thank you for your patience. Let me know when you're ready. Huh? Try it again. All right. Still no sound. So we can talk while we're waiting. Does anyone know the 3 things that Krishna wanted to know about himself that Krishna Das Kaviraj mentions?
To understand the unique position of Radharani. What Radharani is finding.
What she experiences. Okay. And what else? Yes. Okay. And one more thing, the sweetness of her love, yes, which I think you sort of said. Yes. He wanted to see himself. Don't we ever feel like that? That we would like to see ourselves from others' point of view? You know, to know how do others perceive me? How do other people experience me? So this is also Krishna's desire. And you might think that's a little strange because you can say, well, Krishna already knows everything. So if he already knows everything, why does he even have this curiosity? Have you ever wondered about that? If he's all-knowing. But Srila Prabhupada says that Krishna is always expanding, and he expands, and then his knowledge of himself expands, and then he expands some more, and then his knowledge of himself expands some more. So Krishna is dynamic. It's not that he knows everything and then there's nothing more to know because he's exhausted that. I mean, that's boring. Just like in this world, in this life, sometimes we really master a subject so that we just really know that subject backwards and forwards and inside and out. And then it gets boring, right? And we want to go on to something else. Like one of my granddaughters was saying she really likes to cook. And she said, but some days when it's her turn to cook, she doesn't feel like cooking. And she says the way that she gets herself to feel like cooking when she doesn't want to cook is by cooking something new. So it becomes interesting. So if you're always making the same preparation over and over again, we become bored. So with Krishna also, although he knows everything, he's always expanding, so there's always more to know. Okay, well that's hopeful. A good sign. Are we ready? Trying a different cable. All right. I use technology for some of my presentations, but occasionally it requires a lot of patience. Let me know when you are ready. It's interesting, for many years I resisted using technology. And then one sannyasi gave a presentation with the PowerPoint. It wasn't even a very good PowerPoint. But he was talking about how when you have a visual, it helps you remember what you learned. And I thought, I'm a teacher, I know that, so why don't I use visuals? Still playing with the cables. Let me know when we are ready. For those of you watching on the internet, thank you for your patience. Sure, go ahead. That would be a good idea.
What did you started almost like so long back? So you were coming from a totally different religion. What was your initial reaction? How did you felt like coming up? What made you convinced?
Well, I've actually written a whole essay on that that's on my blog.
Oh.
So if you go to urmiladasi.com, there's an essay. But it's a long story. I mean, I was attracted to India and Indian religion from the time I was at least 8. I used to wear a sari, and I had a big map of India on my wall.
We want to talk about the new book, Mataji, that you launched on the Varieties.
Yeah, I didn't bring any copies with me because I thought literally nobody would be here.
You brought the copies already.
Well, they're at I didn't bring them. They're at my son's house because I was told that nobody would be here. And so the temple is going to buy all of them from me and sell them later.
I'm glad the doors weren't closed.
Yeah, I'm glad the doors weren't closed. But yeah, it's a study guide for the Bhagavad Gita. And it focuses on 48 key verses of the Bhagavad Gita. So each of those verses is there. With chapter summaries, and it's designed, you can use it to teach kids from age 5 onwards, or adults can use it as their study guide to memorize verses and get like an overview of the Gita.
How is it different from the illustrated Bhagavad Gita that you already have?
It's not any different, it's just that it's printed.
Oh, okay.
It's exactly the same. Well, it has a cover.
Okay.
But what we found is that if you just tell people they can download a free 250-page PDF, they don't. You know, they don't download a free 250-page PDF and print it out. So it was really just to make it more convenient for people that we produced it as a printed book. We used to have it as a printed book like 25 years ago. So we basically just reproduced it as a printed book. All right, so Mahaprabhu appeared in the Ganga, and in order to show people how to surrender to Krishna and to experience himself being a devotee. And as Rupa Goswami wrote, Namo Mahavadanaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gauratyusne Namaha. O most munificent incarnation, you are Krishna himself appearing as Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You have assumed the golden color of Srimati Radharani, and you are widely distributing pure love of Krishna. We offer our respectful obeisances unto you. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda, Nityananda is Balaram, are very merciful. One can say that they are the most merciful, and that's quite a statement when we think about how merciful Krishna is. So usually if we have people in our lives who are inimical to us, who are trying to hurt us, or maybe just people who bully us and insult us, usually we stay away from those people and we wouldn't let them into our house. Isn't that a fact? Yes? But one of the qualities of Krishna is that he gives liberation to the demons that he kills. Now many of those demons go to the Brahmajyoti, but some of those demons go to his own abode, to his own house. What were some demons that Krishna killed that attained to forms in his own abode? Putana, yeah? Who else? Keshi, did he? Well, could you think of the Brihad Bhagavatamrita?
I think Aghasura attained Sarupya.
Which one?
Aghasura attained Sarupya Mukti.
Aghasura, okay. And Pondraka? You know Pondraka, who dressed up as if he were Krishna, as if he were Vishnu? Kamsa also? Imagine that, you know, Kamsa's arranging to kill so many of Krishna's devotees and harass so many of Krishna's devotees, and still because he's always thinking of Krishna. Krishna is so kind to him that he gives him a place in his own abode. So it's hard to think that there could be an incarnation more merciful than Krishna. Or if we think of Lord Ramachandra engaged many animals in his service. I mean, even a vulture. Maybe we can turn off some more of these lights. That would be good. You know, a vulture is a particularly low species. If you really want to insult somebody, you can call them a vulture. But still, Lord Ramachandra accepted a vulture, Jatayu, and then Sampati, his brother, to be as good as his father. So it's hard to think about how you could have an incarnation more merciful. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda, They are so merciful that they don't really discriminate at all. This particular scene is when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was showing that he was the Lord, which he didn't do very often, but he was showing that he was Vishnu, and he was just giving benedictions to everyone, whatever they would ask for. They would say, please give my, Auntie Krishna Prema, and he would do that. And we find that Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, they're not even giving Krishna consciousness just to people who are thinking of them or engaging with them, but they're giving it to everyone. Whether they ask or not, whether they're deserving or not, they're just widely distributing. So in this way we can say that they are the most merciful. Now someone may think that Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda are incarnations like Varaha or Nrsimha. But here we're understanding that they are the avatari. They are the essence of all the incarnations. So in one hand, Deeparcher eva hita santarma abhipechat, Deepayatena jusamana dharma, yastadrigeva hita vishnu chaya vibhati. In one sense, all the incarnations are the same. We can't really say Krishna, Ram, Nrsimha, Varaha, they're all the same person. It's not that we're not worshippers of many gods. We worship one God. On the other hand, we can say that there's an avatari. We can say that there's an original, complete form of Godhead, a form who manifests all the different rasas, all the different relationships, all the different qualities. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is that form, which he displayed, this Sadbhuj form. He displayed the 2 arms of a sannyasi as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, 2 arms as Krishna holding his flute, and 2 arms as Lord Ramachandra with a bow and arrow. That he is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then he displayed this to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, that he was Krishna and he was Vishnu. Now it's become very popular for people to declare themselves to be God or to allow their followers to declare them to be God. Like right now in Vrindavan, there's this hugely expensive, gorgeous, fall over, gorgeous temple that's dedicated to this man whose followers said that he was God. Many years ago when I was in London, I was giving a class at someone's home, and I knew that many of the people there were followers of someone like this. And someone at the end of the class said, how do you know who's an incarnation of God? And I said, well, for one thing, God is the most beautiful. So there was just this kind of dead silence, So it's very amazing to me that ordinary people or even ugly people have, so many thousands who will say that they are God. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu factually manifested his form, his Sadbhuj form, his form of Krishna, of Vishnu, to Ramananda Roy. He manifested that he was Radha and Krishna combined, that he was Krishna in the mood of Radharani. This is a particularly interesting story. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramananda Roy were discussing philosophy on a very deep level. And at the end, Ramananda Roy said, I'm not really sure who you are because I thought that you were Krishna, but now when I look at you, you appear to be golden. And I'm confused about what is your identity. So Mahaprabhu showed Ramananda Roy that he was a combined form of Radha and Krishna. And when Ramananda Roy said this, he started describing, yes, you are Krishna. And Mahaprabhu said, even after showing him this form, he says, oh, you're a great devotee, therefore you see Krishna everywhere. You're just always seeing the Lord, right? Premanjanacharita bhakti vilochanena santa sadaiva hridayeshu vilokayanti yam sharma sundaram achincha gunastaruptam. If we love somebody, even we love somebody in this world, we think about them a lot. Right? If a person is just about to get married or just newly married, they're going to think a lot about the person that they're marrying or they've just married. Or when you have a new baby, you think about your baby all the time. Even we may do that with an object. We may think about our new car all the time, or our new phone, or our new house. So when one loves Krishna, one thinks about Krishna all the time. And because Krishna is everywhere, Maya tatamidam sarvam jagad avyaktamurtinam, naturally, if we love Krishna, we see him everywhere. I mean, if there's some person we love, and that person painted that picture, or the person made those curtains, we see that, we'll immediately think of them. What to speak of Krishna, who's everywhere. So in this way, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showed that he is the essence of all incarnations. He is Krishna himself, he's not just a devotee, and not only is he Krishna, but he is the original form of Krishna. You could make the sound like quite a lot louder. Why don't we try that again? See if you can make the sound a little louder. So the other wonderful thing about Sri Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda is that they've introduced a process that's just joyful. Now, we might argue with that. I mean, on the one hand, we can say it's just joyful, like Prabhupada said, chanting, dancing, and feasting. That's people's idea of a party. Correct?
Yep.
You know, when I was trying to, you asked me how I came to Krishna Consciousness. So when I was in college and I was thinking about what I wanted to do with my life, I was taking at one point I had a job, and as I was taking the train to work every morning, I thought, all these people going to work don't look very happy about going to work. I really didn't see anybody on the train who looked anything but morose. And you know, Monday was the worst day. And I thought, you know, I was 17 at the time, and I thought, okay, so I could get into a really wonderful career, something really exciting, and after 10 years I'm going to look like all these other people. I thought I want to be able to get up in the morning and immediately be happy. So a few weeks later I ended up staying in the ashram in Chicago. And they said, okay, we have Mangal Artik in the morning at 4:30. And I went to Mangal Artik and everybody's just singing and dancing. And I thought, this is what I want to do, that's it. I want to get up and have a party every morning. Right? And then prasadam, I mean, who doesn't like prasadam? Even atheists, they like prasadam. So you could say in that sense, Kevalananda Kanda. Singing, dancing, and eating. Again, that's what people do for vacation, for relaxation. On the other hand, one could say that there's a lot of aspects of Krishna consciousness that are difficult. Is that correct? You know, everybody that I've talked to has something about Krishna consciousness that they find very difficult. And that's different for different people. For some people, chanting 16 rounds is torture. You know, there are people who easily, like I have a godsister who from her first week in the movement was chanting 40 rounds every day. And other people, you know, like they're just struggling and struggling and struggling. You know, there are people who've never gambled in their life, and there's other people who are gambling addicts and struggle with that. So different people have different things that they find difficult. But most people have something they find difficult. Some people just, they struggle like anything not to be critical. Some people really struggle to be clean. I mean, there's different things that people struggle with. But even in addition to that, something that nobody warned me about when I joined the Hare Krishna movement is that when you chant Hare Krishna, we'll talk about this tomorrow, cleansing the mirror of the mind, one starts to see oneself honestly. And when one is a conditioned soul, seeing one's conditioned nature honestly is unpleasant. You know, most conditioned souls think, I'm a good person. I do good things. And if I do something bad, it's a mistake. Well, I don't intentionally do something bad. I have good motives. I mess up sometimes. But as you progress in Krishna consciousness, one will start seeing that actually I don't have any good motives at all. I may sometimes do the right thing by mistake, but my motives are rotten. And it's quite challenging. It really challenges the ego. Now, of course, as one progresses even further in Krishna consciousness, one starts to see that one is all good and one is all perfect as a soul. But that's a different kind of perfection than one imagines within the... And what is this? More water. Oh, thank you. It's nice to have 2 cups of water, because right before I came here, my granddaughter had made pizza, and after you eat pizza, you're very thirsty. Having 2 cups of water tonight, it's very good. So in one sense, one can say that doesn't seem to be particularly joyful. I mean, once one starts realizing that one is a soul and starts realizing one's eternal relationship with Krishna, that's pretty exciting. But one also has to see one's an artist and let go of one's an artist. I mean, it's not really avoidable. And we can say, well, how is that kevala and andakanda? Kevala means only, exclusively, joyful. So how is that joyful? Well, if one's attached to the false ego, it's not joyful at all. It's excruciating. And many times people will run away from anartha nivritti because of that. In fact, what I see as I've talked to many, many thousands of members of our movement over the years, is that many people, when they start hitting anartha nivritti, they turn around and run away. Either they externally give up on a lot of their practices, or they become just mechanical in their practice because they don't want to deal with this anartha nivritti, because it's such a challenge to the false ego. Just like even in ordinary life, none of us want to be told that we've done something wrong. Huh? But if our goal is Krishna consciousness, then the removal of the false ego is also joyful. It's also joyful. And this is, I think, very difficult to explain to somebody who's not trying for Krishna consciousness, how it can be exceedingly joyful to honestly see one's anarthas and let go of them. We can get some idea that if we have some sort of disease and we go to a doctor, and the doctor may even have to do some surgery to cut out the disease, but it's relief. We feel very relieved. Oh, I've finally gotten rid of this disease, even though the process for getting rid of the disease might involve something that's painful. It might involve some, they have to take a scalpel or give us an injection or something like that. But still it is very joyful. Or, if you have too many things. So I was visiting someone recently that had far greater number of things than they had places to put the things. And so the shelves and the drawers were overflowing and the floors were disappearing. And so when it came time to pack up a lot of these things and donate them to charity, they were feeling very happy. Oh, the charity truck is coming. We can get rid of these things. And these were things that they had purchased with some expectation of enjoying them. But still, getting rid of them became a relief. So it is even enjoyable to get rid of our anarthas when our goal is to love Krishna. Or another example would be in our human relationships, that often in our human relationships, in order to get along with people, we may have to give up something, even something that we had some attachment to. We may need to give up some bad habit or even some object, or I knew of a situation with a husband and wife where the husband got asthma. They owned a cat. And the doctor said to the wife, it's either your husband or your cat. Unfortunately, she chose the cat. Very unfortunate. But often in our general relationships, we may have to give up something if there's love. And if there's actually love, then giving up that thing is also joyful. And people regularly do this in marriage. A person may move to another city because their spouse has a job there. It's very common. Right? I met a woman the other day, and this I think is very common in the Indian community, where she was about 40, that when she got married when she was like 19, you know, she met her husband in India, got married, and 1 week later moved to America. Yes, isn't this very common? So, you know, you're giving up your family, you're giving up your community, you're giving up your country. I have a good friend who's from South Africa. She married a German man, and so she moved to Germany. But giving up things for someone you love is also joyful. So the difficulties in Krishna consciousness, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, these difficulties become sources of happiness for me when I'm doing them for you. So here, Bhajo Bhajo Bhai, Bhai means brother, but as has been explained to me by some Bengali friends, that Bhai, although it means brother, he's not only talking to men. So don't worry, ladies, this is also applicable to you. Just like here in America, if we say, come on, guys. I mean, in one sense, guys is masculine, but it just means everybody. Yes. So he's saying, my dear brother. In one sense, because aham bija pradapita, because Krishna is everyone's father, you can say we're all brothers. We all have the same mother and father. Just worship Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. So this very pleasing kind of a request. You know, please do, my dear brother. So in general, our preaching, you know, Srila Prabhupada liked the word preaching, although I think for many Americans the word preaching has sort of a negative connotation. But our bringing people to Krishna consciousness should be like this. You know, oh my dear friend, my dear brother, please do this. Please try to worship Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. And how to worship them? So to worship them with some faith. So it's very nice. Arjuna asks in the Bhagavad Gita, after Krishna says, well, there's the divine and there's the demoniac. Then Arjuna says, well, is there anything else? Because often we think in extremes. Well, there's just good people and bad people. Right? One of my grandkids likes to say, there's not just black and white, there's also colors. So Arjuna was asking about this. Are there varieties? And one thing Krishna talks about is varieties of faith. That one can have faith in the different modes of nature. So really, without faith, we don't do anything. Whatever we do in life, we have some sort of faith. We have some sort of belief that if I do this thing, I will be happy. Otherwise, we wouldn't do it. If I do this thing, I will be safe. If I do this thing, I will be loved. I mean, it may seem to us that we do things against our desire. Arjuna asked that question in the Bhagavad Gita. Why do I seemingly do things against my will as if I'm forced? And what was Krishna's answer? It is your own what? Lust. So lust means, this is the contradiction, it's also in Manashiksha. Lust means a great desire to enjoy something. And the desires become so great that it's become irrational. And that we no longer care about the consequences of our actions. We want something so much that even though there might be some suffering involved with getting it, we just ignore that. Maybe we figure, well, I'll deal with it when it happens, or maybe it won't happen to me, you know. Everyone else will smoke and get cancer, but not me, or whatever. So this is what lust means. It means that one becomes so obsessed. Yes? So Arjuna is asking about, why do I do things I know are bad? And Krishna says, because you want to do them so much that you don't care about the ill effect. So please try to understand this paradox. The things we do that we don't want to do, like eating the extra piece of cake, you know, or watching some completely stupid and inane television show when we have a lot of important things that we need to do, or talking to somebody we don't like who's just gossiping, or whatever it is that we do, spending money that we know we don't really have. Whenever we do these things that we don't want to do them, and then we say, why did I do them? I don't want to do them. Oh, it's just a bad habit. We're doing them because we intensely want to do them. We so intensely want to do these things that we don't care about the consequences. This is a paradox. We intensely want to do things that we don't want to do. So why do we have this intense desire to do something, or why do we do anything? It's because we have some belief, some faith, that doing this thing will get me some happiness, or will avoid some distress. So we are asked here to have this kind of faith in the worship of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. And we may say, well, it's very hard to have faith in something spiritual, but I don't think so, because we're able to have faith in just about anything. I mean, people have beliefs that just about anything will make them happy. If you think about all the different things that people do, and that they eat, and that they talk about, and that they watch, and that they drink, and that they spend money on, and that they spend time on. So we're able to believe in just about anything. Why not believe in God? Why not? And why are we asked to worship Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda with faith? Now, on the one hand, Jiva Goswami says in his Bhakti Sandarbha that bhakti can be performed without knowledge, which Prabhupada calls agyata sukriti. So if bhakti can be performed without knowledge, and we have many examples in the scripture of someone doing bhakti without knowledge and getting a great result, you know, accidentally fasting on Ekadasi, or accidentally offering a lamp to the deities, or doing some service for a devotee. So why is faith required? Because when there's faith, as Krishna explains to Nanda Maharaj about Govardhan Puja, and as Krishna also explains in the Bhagavad Gita, that a sacrifice in knowledge is better than a sacrifice without knowledge. Now, one of the reasons for that is that Krishna explains that generally we get what we want. It says those who worship the demigods will live with the demigods, those who worship the ancestors will live with the ancestors. One definition of Krishna is Eko Bahunam Yo Vidadanti Kaman. He's been fulfilling everyone's desires. So the desires we have when we do something are important. And the belief we have when we do something is also important. And again, this principle operates even materially. Everyone's heard about the placebo effect? Yeah? Placebo. So about 30% of people will get well taking just some sugar pill that has no medicine in it if they believe it will make them well. 30% of people. That's going to include at least some of us in this room. And there's also the nocebo effect, that if someone tells you you're going to get worse, you'll get worse. I mean, this is even true for surgery. There's been different studies. You know, half of the patients will get real knee surgery, and the other half they just make an incision and then they sew it up. And they tell them they got real knee surgery. And the same number of people will feel better from the real surgery as from the fake surgery. What we believe makes a difference. I was just reading a study that 42% of men who are losing their hair can have their hair grow back if they believe they're taking a medicine that will make their hair grow back. I thought, that's pretty interesting.
I'll try that one.
Yeah, there you go. So it matters. It matters what we believe. And therefore, when we worship the Lord with faith, the result is greater than when we worship without faith. All right, this is the one that nobody likes. That if we... This is about Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taking sannyas. So here you see him leaving his young wife. He hadn't even been married very long, right? Because she was his second wife. His first wife had died. And she was very young, not married long. And he left her to take sannyas. So again, this is what nobody likes. Nobody wants to give up their sense gratification. Nobody wants to give up their materialistic life. So Srila Prabhupada has made it very basic. No illicit sex, no meat eating, no intoxication, no gambling. Of course, for many people in the world, those are very severe and burdensome austerities. And Prabhupada always likes to talk about Jetland, there's some big British nobleman who said, this is impossible. Right? This is our life, intoxication, meat eating, illicit sex, and gambling. But at least that sense gratification one should give up. At least these areas, these pillars of Kali Yuga. Because if one is engaging in these things, one will be very much affected by passion and ignorance. And then understanding Krishna is very difficult. It's possible to understand Krishna even from the mode of passion and ignorance. And in the Bhakti Sandarbha Jiva Goswami gives the example of Vitrasura. I just finished reading the story of Vitrasura. And it states in the Bhagavatam, specifically, that he had a body in the mode of ignorance. But still he was a pure devotee. And we have examples of demigods in the mode of goodness who don't fall in love with Krishna. So it's not just a question of whether one is in sinful or pious life. But still, in general, if we engaged in these gross sinful activities, then thinking of Krishna becomes very difficult. So we have this basic principle that we should become free of passion and ignorance as far as possible. And of course, it may be gradual. One may not be able to give up all of one's nonsense immediately. But at least we should be aiming for that. So here we have the picture of when Mahaprabhu was a little baby, and he would cry unless people were chanting Hare Krishna. So therefore there was chanting throughout the house at all times. So here we're learning that we should chant, but not only to chant, but without any materialistic motive. Now, of course, even if we're chanting for a materialistic motive, eventually we'll become purified. But just again, to give a material example, if I'm talking to you because I want something from you, because I want to exploit you, so we're not going to be able to have much of a real relationship. And it's like that if I'm chanting Hare Krishna, wanting to get something from Krishna. We see this very clearly when we're in India, especially in Vrindavan, when the local shopkeepers, or the beggar children, you're walking past them and they say, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Or they have some big picture of Srila Prabhupada up in their shop. And you know very well that what they're really saying is, buy my stuff. Give me some money, right? So sometimes the beggar children will just shamelessly go up and say, chocolate, chocolate. Rupees, rupees. But other times they'll just say, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So, we're not so foolish. We understand that what they're really saying is money, money. That's not very difficult for us to understand. So what to speak of Krishna, who's the most intelligent? He certainly understands if we're chanting his name, thinking about something else. Of course, even in that case, better we chant his name than don't chant his name. But if we want to get Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy very quickly, then we want to chant with a desire for service. So this chanting of Hare Krishna in Kirtan and in Japa, this is the essence of how we're bringing Krishna consciousness to people in general. Yes? Just simply chant the name of Krishna. And in fact, in one sense, although we're saying Vishayacharya, give up all sense gratification, in another sense, we go to people in general and say, whatever, just start chanting Hare Krishna. We don't make a prior requirement. I've been many times out on Harinam, like in London on a Saturday night. We go to the theater district, bring out the Harinam party, and most people are intoxicated. And they're eating in meat restaurants and they're going to the theater. But we don't say, first you have to give up all your sense gratification and then you can chant. But we immediately ask them to join the Kirtan party. This is such a wonderful pastime. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would stand at the Garuda Stamba to see the deities, and the reason he did that, it's also interesting, was because the first time he came to see Lord Jagannath, he felt so much ecstasy that he fainted. And when he fainted, he was hardly breathing. He went into what's called a catatonic trance. And it was kind of a disturbance. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya brought him to his house. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu didn't want to exhibit that kind of ecstasy again. We found that until the very end of his manifested pastimes, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu didn't so much exhibit ecstasies in public. That was at the very end, and it was particularly when the devotees from Bengal were not there. But anyway, he wanted to restrain himself. Although the devotees are always experiencing ecstasies, they don't so much want to display it. Just like when you go to India, you will find that even between husbands and wives, they're not very demonstrative in public of their affections. Isn't it? It's interesting in India because people will do their toilet business on the street. And they will brush their teeth on their roof or in their front yard, but they're not likely to, embrace and kiss in public. In the West, it's the opposite. Yes, people will be very affectionate and romantic in public, but when they use the toilet, it's in a private room. So we switch these things. But in civilized society, you don't show romantic affection publicly. That's why, like when a Jamil saw the Shudra couple being romantic publicly, he was so disturbed. It wasn't part of his general environment to see such things. So in a similar way, one's love for Krishna, it's very intimate. It's very private. It's not the kind of thing that one displays publicly. Of course, sometimes a devotee's ecstatic symptoms become so strong that they cannot control it. Right? And the Catholic saint, Teresa of Avila, who lived about the time of Mahaprabhu, she made the comment that sometimes these symptoms become visible because the Lord wants everyone to know that person is mine. Just like when people get engaged, they're going around with their ring showing everybody, I belong to this person. So sometimes Krishna wants to show this person is mine. But generally, the devotees try to internalize their ecstatic symptoms. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu didn't want to be showing these ecstatic symptoms externally. Again, it was more the last few years of his manifest pastimes and not when all the crowds of devotees were there for Chaturmasya, when he was with his private associates, that he was displaying extraordinary ecstatic symptoms. So he thought, well, if I keep a little distance from the deities, then I won't get too overwhelmed with ecstasy. Yes, and this is kind of the conundrum for the devotees, that we want to absorb our mind in Krishna, so that we feel ecstatic. At the same time, we don't want to be displaying that we feel ecstatic. So we may kind of step back a little bit. So this was Mahaprabhu. He stepped back a little bit and he's waiting at the Garuda Stamba. So this is always where he would stay. So one time there was this one elderly lady who was so eager to see the Lord. And you know, in some temples, just like at our temple in Mayapur Dham, so the Panchatattva are at a very high altar, and Radhamadava and the Astasakis are at a very high altar. But Nrsingadev's altar is low. So if you're there for Mangalarti, and then you want to see Nrsingadev, especially if you're a lady, like, forget it. You just can't do it, you know. You've got to be a man and you've got to be somewhere near the front. It just, you know, you can kind of see, maybe if you just get in the right place at the right time for a moment or two, you know, you can kind of, oh, there's his face, oop, gone again. You know, and a lot of people are looking at Nrsingadev on the monitors because they can't see him in the temple room, right? So there is a piece of furniture there where the devotee who's filming for the internet is standing on top of this piece of furniture, right? And every morning when I'm there, I think, I wish I could climb on top of that piece of furniture and pretend that I was the internet guy, you know? Oh, I'm the internet guy today, you know? So I could get a good view of Nrsingadev. So that's how this lady was feeling. She really got so carried away that she didn't climb up on a piece of furniture. I mean, I never actually climbed on the piece of furniture. I didn't have that much eagerness. I would think, oh, well, if I climb up there, somebody will criticize me, and I'll look funny, you know, so I just don't do it. But this lady was so eager that she didn't care what anybody would say. She just forgot. She just forgot about everything. This is the spiritual original form of lust, right? Material lust is you want something so much you don't care about the consequence. And the original form of that is love of God, where you want Krishna so much you don't think about the consequences. So it was like that. She just climbed up whoever was there. And it happened to be Lord Chaitanya. And so this is a little ironic because she's climbing on God to see God. She wasn't aware of who she was climbing on. And Govinda became scandalized. Mahaprabhu was very strict about his dealings with women, and here's this woman climbing on him. And is anybody climbing on you? You know, if you're serving a very respectable person and somebody climbs on them. So Govinda was very scandalized, and he immediately tried to get the woman to come down. And once Govinda was trying to take her down, and she realized what she had done, she realized, oh my goodness, I'm climbing on this sannyasi to see the deities. So she became very embarrassed, and she got down. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said to Govinda, no, don't take her down. He said, I wish I had this much eagerness to see the Lord. So this is, of course, the famous pastime of when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was going through the Jharkhand forest, and he got the animals to sing and dance, and the tigers and the deer were dancing with each other and crying and chanting. Many times Srila Prabhupada would say that we can't get the animals to chant, but at least we can get the human beings to chant. So this is we were talking before about how Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was the most merciful incarnation, and we mentioned about Lord Ramchandra, who engaged so many animals and birds in devotional service. But here we find that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did that as well. That he was getting the animals not only to chant and dance, but they gave up all of their enmity. There's a similar statement after the Govardhan Puja Lila with Krishna, that when Krishna put down the hill and Indra came and apologized, it's explained that all of the animals gave up their enmity. So of course in the spiritual world there are different kinds of animals, but they're not envious of each other. They're not eating each other. So it's, in the spiritual world there are bees, but they're not stinging anyone, and there's tigers, but they're not eating the deer, and so forth. So if Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu can do that with animals, then certainly we can do that among human beings. This age of Kali is the age of quarrel. And it is said that in the age of Kali, people quarrel just to quarrel. Doesn't it seem like that? People fight just to fight. What are people fighting about? I mean, it goes on and on and on and on and on. And as soon as one controversy is over, there's another controversy, and then there's another controversy, and then there's another controversy. And, you know, I know of dozens and dozens of people who seem to just live to be angry at something or somebody. You know, if they don't have anybody to be angry at or anything to be angry about, then they don't know what to do with themselves. You know, they have to be fighting for some cause or against some cause or for some person or against some person. So it is possible for all of us to get along. That doesn't mean we lose our opinions. It doesn't mean we lose our personality. It doesn't mean we'll all agree about everything. But it does mean that we won't be fighting with each other all the time. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's able to bring the animals and the birds to harmony. Now this melting of stones is something that also happens in Krishna's Leela when Krishna does what? How does Krishna melt the stones? When he plays his flute. Radharani's singing also melts stones. And then it's explained by one of our acharyas how, I think it's Kavi Karnapur, how when Lalita sings, the stones melt and then they reconfigure themselves into different shapes. So, it's very wonderful that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu can melt stone, because in conditioned life our heart often becomes like a stone. That all we care about is ourself and maybe the people who are close to us, and we don't really care about anybody else. Often we don't even care about people who are close to us. We just care about ourselves. And in the ultimate issue, we don't even care about ourselves. We don't even care about ourselves as a soul. We eat things that damage our body, eat and drink things that damage our body, watch things that damage our consciousness, say things that damage our consciousness. Right? We're not even kind to ourselves. Krishna says that someone who's realized they relish and rejoice in the self. So a stone-hearted person, they don't do things they don't love themselves. They don't really love others. Right? It's really a miserable existence being stone-hearted. Or repressing all of one's natural emotions. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda, they can melt stone. So this is very useful to have a stone-melting God. Because that's what we need. You know, I was just thinking about this the other day, that if I really want to get along with people, I can't be hard-hearted. You know, how can you have real relationships with people unless there's some empathy and some compassion and some connection? I mean, that just sounds so duh, but often it's not there. Often our relationships with people are mostly about defending our own ego. I mean, I'm really speaking about myself here. But often our relationships with people are just about defending our own ego, defending our own position, defending our own status, and not really about having a connection with others. So ultimately what we're looking for is a connection with God, with Krishna, which then gives us a connection with all living beings. But that's only possible if our stone-hearted nature will melt. Now we might say, well, Lord Chaitanya isn't here. How will my stone heart melt without Mahaprabhu here? But we're learning that all we have to do is hear about his qualities. And I must say that I see this in my personal experience, in my own life in Krishna consciousness and the lives of other devotees. That as soon as we are talking and hearing about the qualities of the Lord, then immediately our problems go away, at least for that time. At least for that time. When we're really absorbed in hearing about the Lord's qualities and pastimes and name and form, talking about them. We're not disturbed. We're not disturbed by the politics of the world. We're not disturbed about the pandemics of the world. We're not disturbed about, this person likes this, they don't like this, they said this, they did this, they went here, they went there. It all goes away. And our natural spiritual feelings awaken. But there's this lamentation that although my heart could melt simply by being absorbed in hearing of the qualities of Lord Chaitanya, still I'm trapped. I'm stuck. And again, this is something that I see all of the time. Here we are in the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, but it's very difficult to get people to talk about Krishna, to just have relationships about Krishna. If you try to just talk about Krishna's pastimes and Krishna's form and Krishna's qualities, people will often just start talking about politics or start talking about this or that thing in the world. We become stuck in our process of sense gratification. Even though we all have experienced that if I just talk about Krishna, I just hear about Krishna, that none of these things matter to me and I become happy. This is a picture, by the way, at Shamakund of where Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati installed you can see it not so well, but anyway, in the corner, the marble footprints of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is a very old picture, though. The walls now look quite different. So this sort of sentiment is often expressed. In fact, it's expressed by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, where he says, I have no attraction to the name of Krishna. And we may wonder why devotees make this kind of statement. Why are they saying this? And many times we just imitate this and say, oh, I have no attraction, oh, I'm so fallen. But of course they have great attraction. The thing is that attraction for the name of the Lord can be unlimited. For material things, there's a limited amount of attraction you can have for anything in this world. I mean, no matter how good the pizza is, no matter how much you like the car, no matter how much you love your child, there's a limit to it, isn't it? But spiritually, how much we can be attracted to the Lord's name, how much we can be attracted to the Lord's form, it's unlimited. And therefore, we can always feel, well, I don't have any attraction. I'm really just a beginner. Because no matter how much attraction you have, one sees that there's unlimitedly more attraction. So here's the devotee's humility. This is King Prataparudra. So here's the devotee's humility, that they don't find fault in Krishna consciousness, they find fault in themselves. Now, an interesting phenomena that I've seen for many years is if we're not deeply making advancement in Krishna consciousness, if we're not feeling great spiritual joy, it's very easy to blame anyone and anything else. I'm personally convinced that a lot of the criticism of ISKCON leaders or just other devotees in general or this or that ISKCON community is that people are really upset with themselves for not having become in a state of spiritual ecstasy. So instead of saying, well, it's because of my own sins, it's because of my own fallen nature, it basically comes down to, well, it's because of somebody else. It's because this ISKCON temple president, they have this problem, or it's, this GBC has this problem, or this devotee has this problem, or this person did this wrong, or this person did that wrong. And ultimately, if we're not always happy, if we're not Kevalananda Kanda, then it's our own problem. It doesn't matter who cheats and who does this and who has this fault and who has that fault. If I fall in love with Krishna, I will always feel joyful. So here this example, Lochan Das is giving this example that he's taking personal responsibility for his own lack of Krishna consciousness. Can you make it louder? So I thought now we might want to sing Paramakarana. Is there any cartels? So should we do a fast tune or a slow tune? Slow? Padama Koruna Pahodvi Jana Nittai Gora Chandra Dvijana Nittai Gora Chandra Padama Koruna Pahodvi Jana Nittai Gaura Chandra Sabavatar Sarshiromani Kevalaya Nanda Kanda Sabavatar Sarashiromani Kevalaya Nanda Kanda Bhajo Bhajo Bhai Chaitanya Nittai Surya Vishvasa Kori Bhajo Bhajo Bhai Chaitanya Nittai Surya Vishvasa Kori Vishaya Chadiya Serase Majiya Mukhe Bolo Hari Hari Vishaya Chadiya Serase Majiya Mukhe Bolo Hari Hari Vishaya Chadiya Kore Bai Tribhuvane Nai Amona Doyalo Data Dekore Bai Tribhuvane Nai Amona Doyalo Data Pasupaki Jue Pasana Vidare Shuni Janra Gunagata Pasupaki Jure Pasana Vidare Shuni Janra Gunagata Samsare Majia Rohili Podia Se Pare Nahila Asha Samsare Majia Rohili Podia Se Pare Nahila Asha Apana Karma Bunjaye Shamana Kahoe Lochana Dasa Apana Karama Bunjaye Shamana Kahoe Lochana Dasa So we have just about 5 minutes if anyone has any questions, comments.
If they have question online, they can post in the comments.
Sure. Yes.
It said that Lord Chaitanya accepted the mood and complexion of Radharani. Why did he accept the complexion too?
Because for the Lord, different moods means different forms in general. You know, he's only, that's fine, I'm all right. That's all right. It's only 5 more minutes, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. The Lord is one. So why does he have all these different forms? Why does he have Nisinga, Varaha, Kurma, Matsya, Ram, Balaram? Because as soon as he's in a different mood, he has a different form. We have a little bit of that in our life. You know, our body changes somewhat according to our mood. Now you see someone like this. Okay, what's the matter? You know, when you learn writing, your teacher says, show, don't tell. You know, instead of saying, Susie was angry, you say, Susie came home from work, slammed the door behind her, you know, kicked the leg of the chair, threw her purse on the table, sat down on the couch with a big noise and said, wow, that was a terrible day. And you can understand she's upset. So we have a different behavior according to our mood. We dress differently according to our mood. You know, if we're going to just work in the garden, or we're going to go to a fancy dinner or something like that. So with the Lord, his form changes. His form changes, his color changes. Again, we have that a little bit. You know, if we're embarrassed, if we're angry, our color changes. So he fully changes. There's no difference between the Lord and his form reflects his mood. Is that all right? Yes?
So, Holy Name is so powerful. So, Lord's Holy Name is very powerful.
Yes.
But why is it that my material desires just burn out when I chant the Lord's name?
Why do our material desires,
Don't burn out.
why don't they burn out? They will. They will. Some of our material desires go away as soon as we take up Krishna consciousness. Some things we immediately lose interest in. And other things are more deep-rooted and they take some time. Depends on how long we've had the attachment, how deep the attachment is. I mean, this is not absolutely true, but as a general truth, if you've only been sick for a couple days, generally the cure isn't as involved as if you've been sick for 20 years. Again, that's not an absolute truth. You can be sick for 20 years and get well overnight. But usually, more deep-rooted, long-standing things may take longer to get rid of. So we have different kinds of material desires with different, you could say, different depths of roots that we're holding on to. And again, that's different for different people. So the material desires that went away with me immediately might be the ones that someone else is still struggling with after 20 years. It depends. And because of that, we have to be careful about being very, as we say, judgmental about other people. Because what's very difficult for me may be easy for you, and what's very easy for me may be very difficult for you. But eventually they will go away. And I think I had a real kind of wake up about this some years ago when someone in the audience asked me about their family members who were not favorable to Krishna consciousness, family and friends, and how it was so hard for her to give up some of these relationships. And I remember thinking, that's not a big problem. And then very quickly I remembered that there was a time in my life when that had been a huge problem. When that was the problem. And I realized it just wasn't a problem anymore. And I thought like that, you know, so many things, once they're gone, we forget how much of a hold they had on us. We may not remember. And sometimes when we see other people who are still struggling with them, we think, oh yes, Krishna consciousness has removed this from me. It's not something I'm struggling with anymore. But I mean, just speaking from my own experience, I've seen certain things that just like took decades. And then one day they were just gone. Like, wow, that's nice. Now, if our material desires aren't going away at all, then we're probably committing some sort of offenses while we're chanting. And the most dangerous offense, of course, is to be offensive to the devotees. So it's probably a wise idea not to be offensive to anybody, because it's not so easy to tell who's a devotee and who's not a devotee. I mean, in Krishna's pastimes, there were devotees, there were demons who dressed up as devotees. You know, there were demons who looked like cowherd boys. And even Balaram didn't recognize them. Pralambasura dressed up as a cowherd boy, and Balaram didn't recognize him, right? Until Pralamba was carrying him around. Krishna recognized him. Or with Vyomasura, Krishna recognized him. But the cowherd boys didn't. And then we have, I was just talking about Vitrasura. This is, I just finished reading that pastime in the 6th canto. Vitrasura was a demon. I mean, not only did he look like a demon, but he was fighting against the demigods and trying to kill them. They're devotees. You know, of course, at one point, when Indra became morose, Vitrasura was preaching to him. And then Indra realizes, and he says, how is it that you're in the mode of ignorance and yet you're a great devotee? So sometimes someone who looks like a demon may be a great devotee, and sometimes someone who looks like a great devotee may be a demon. So it's probably wise not to be offensive to anybody. I mean, that doesn't mean that we have to let, you know, robbers and murderers into our living room, because they might be great devotees. But we shouldn't be offensive to anyone. I mean, the other offenses are to disregard the scriptures, to disobey the guru, to commit sins on the strength of chanting. But if we're chanting, and our material desires are staying the same, then we're probably committing some sort of offense. As I said, the most serious, the most common offense is to be offensive to the devotees. Is that all right?
Yes.
Anybody else? We have now a wandering mic. Yes.
Can you announce on the mic that if someone has a question online,
If someone has a question online, you can send it in.
you can post it in the comments.
Post it in the comments. Yes.
I can't, this on? Okay, I can't remember the whole thing, but I've heard a verse and it summarizes the ways that you can offend a devotee. It's like Vaishnava Navinandati, not greeting or being happy to see a Vaishnava,
Yes.
criticizing. And I was wondering, is it kind of an objective standard, or is it what actually makes the devotee feel offended? Like, if someone's offended by something, but it's not an offense according to Shastra, is that Vaishnava Aparadha, or the other way around?
Well, there's that famous story of when Rupa Goswami was in trance, and he laughed at something in trance, and somebody walking by thought he'd laughed at him.
Yes.
And because of that, Rupa Goswami's bhajan was affected.
Yes, the Brahmana was possible.
Yeah. So I think there's both an objective and a subjective standard. Now, it's not possible, as far as I can see, to move from birth to death without somebody being upset with you for something. And in fact, if we always try to please everybody all the time, we'll literally make ourselves physically ill. I mean, there's a direct link between trying to please everybody all the time and physical illness. So trying to be everything to everybody all the time and making everybody happy with you is not even a very good idea. It's not compatible even with physical or with mental health. But Krishna says that one for whom others are not put into difficulty and who is not disturbed by others is very dear to him. So at least we shouldn't intentionally cause others difficulty. And if we've learned that we've caused someone difficulty unintentionally, we should do our best to apologize. Bhaktivinoda says if you apologize and the other person doesn't accept it, then you serve them. And if they don't accept that, then you just chant Hare Krishna. But at least to make some effort with good faith to apologize. And if that's not possible, to do some service for them. But unintentionally offending people is practically impossible to avoid. I mean, especially in Kali Yuga where people can be offended by anything. But that doesn't mean we should become callous and just say, well, I'm just going to do whatever I want, and if people are offended, I don't care. You know, there's some kind of a balance there. But yeah, Bhaktivinoda says if we don't see joy upon seeing a Vaishnava. And, you know, it's interesting, Narada Muni tells Dhruva Maharaj, he says, if you want to become free from all miseries, then you should feel joyful upon seeing someone superior, make friends with those who are equal, and feel compassion on those who are inferior. And Prabhupada says there in the purport, generally we do just the opposite. If somebody's superior, then we try to drag them down. We try to find some fault in them. A lot of what goes on in the news is like that. You know, a lot of the news is fault-finding of people who are in positions of power or wealth or opulence of some sort. And then instead of being friends with equals, we brag. We try to put ourselves above them. And when someone's below us, instead of being compassionate to them, we try to put them down even further. We try to exploit them. So, in some way we're trying to posit ourselves as superior. But it is interesting that Narada Muni says that just doing that will free us from all miseries. And that's true for all jivas. It's not just true for those who are devotees. What Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Namruchi jiva doya, to be merciful to everyone and have taste in the name. So again, in this age of Kali, we will offend people just by existing, even if we don't do anything wrong. But we should try to be inoffensive persons as far as possible, and especially when we're dealing with devotees. And by devotees, I was just hearing the tape again where Prabhupada said that this means, Jesus Christ and Muhammad. It doesn't just mean people who are in ISKCON or people who chant Hare Krishna or, people who are in the Vaishnav Sampradayas. It doesn't mean that, but it means anybody who's worshiping God in any capacity. Could take maybe one or two more. Did anybody write a question from online?
Someone asked, what was the song that was...
It's Parama Karna by Lochandesta, so you answered that, okay. Was there any other questions from online?
No, not yet.
Not yet. Well, I'm going to end in like a couple minutes. Anybody else here have a question?
There is one question.
Okay.
In Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, scriptures did not mention about Mahaprabhu. Can you give us your thoughts?
Well, considering that I'm in the Gaudiya Sampradaya, I really think that's a question for somebody in the Sri Sampradaya. And not a question for me. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that we should not feel hatred towards anybody with their other ways of worship. So that's something that's very important.
So thank you, Mataji, for taking this wonderful interactive multimedia session on the Parama Karuna. So as Mahaprabhu, through his pastime compared to what he did in Krishna or in Rama Avatar, it's not very opulent kind of he didn't show all his opulences. So as a Gaudiya Vaishnava, we know he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but it is very hard to convince when someone joins started taking interest in the Krishna consciousness. They may have little faith on Krishna or Rama or Narasimha, but it's somehow it takes a lot of time for them to establish and build the faith or believe
that depends on a person's background.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've met many devotees who are immediately attracted to Lord Chaitanya, but not Krishna. And others who are immediately attracted to Krishna and not so much Lord Chaitanya. So that may just take some time. We all have our particular feelings. We're individuals. Of course, we have the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. We have the book Teachings of Lord Chaitanya. So you give people these books and let it take some time. I mean, one thing that I'm learning in spiritual life is that trying to force things damages people. When I was a little girl, my father used to say about mechanical things, never force something. If you force something, you're going to break it. And it's taken me a while to understand that that's just as applicable to human beings. So whatever faith a person has, fan that, and eventually it expands and it grows. But again, I see both ways. I know many devotees who say, yeah, I'm really attracted to Lord Chaitanya, but I'm not so attracted to Krishna. So that's there.
So my question was more from the people from the Indian background, actually born in India, so they very easily take Rama and Krishna, but...
Then you just give them time. Give them time, give them a book. Whatever somebody is already attracted to, work with that. Often we tend to just see the problem, but Prabhupada talked about take the spark and fan the spark. Everybody has some problem. Everybody, I mean, who is going to say they have no problem or they have no doubt or they have... So fan the spark and eventually it will move to other things. Does that make sense? Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, so tomorrow we're going to have another presentation and we invite you to attend online.